Well, hello.
Hi.
Now, you might be able to guess the film we're reviewing today. Amy and I will be reviewing the prequel
That's
and
right.
the. Is it chronologically the first?
Well, yes.
Because this is the exciting
Well-
thing about Annabelle Creation is that it's in the Conjureverse, the Waniverse.
I would like to say the Waniverse. I like the Waniverse.
I like the Waniverse as well.
Yes.
So it's a horror film in what arguably is what I think Dark Universe wishes it was.
For sure.
It's a cinematic universe where creatures, heroes, villains, beasties of all sorts all exist in a tangentially connected but always fascinating, always terrifying, always wonderful horror film series. And so Annabelle Creation is about the creation of this, terrifying doll. And it has already been in several other films in different ways.
Yeah.
And this film also connects with other films in the Waniverse. And
And in future films in the Waniverse, 100% we know.
yeah, it's exciting what James Wan is up to. So let's try to get into this in a way that at first isn't completely spoilery.
Yeah.
Because honestly, this is a concept worth talking about, whether you've seen the film or not, and whether you plan to see the film or not. We want to have a moment here where we can really appreciate.
Sorry. Is this okay?
Do you
Do
you
I
have?
want to take this off?
You're,
I guess, kind of. It's not the most, like, it's not very, it's kind of cumbersome for drinking, but. Alright.
and you look pretty convincing underneath, so I wouldn't be.
It's because I'm terrible at doing makeup, man. All right.
I love this. All right, so you are far more intimately aware of what James Wan has been up to and what his cinematic universe is than I am.
Right.
I actually went into this film not 100% sure that this was a James Wan related film at all. I tried to do a little bit of research, but not too much, because I wanted to really get the most out of this horror film and be surprised. So when I saw the director's name wasn't James Wan, I was like, oh, maybe I've imagined that. Maybe this is just a cool Chucky-style doll movie that I'm going to, get some spooks, and that'll be that. But man, you went into this with much more aware of what it was. So
Right.
what was your step into this like?
So, I mean, first of all, I know a lot about, James Wan as a person, because he's a wonderful dude, and I know a lot about his films. I also know a lot about the background of these characters. So if you want to dig a little deeper, we look at The Conjuring, and that is starring Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, who I adore. And it is about the Warren family, or the Warren husband and wife team, who are kind of like spooky ghost kind of chasers from the 70s. And they made a big name for themselves. A lot of people call them hacks. A lot of people, don't agree with what they've done. Whether or not you agree with it, I like the concept of it. So then there was The Conjuring 2. And in The Conjuring 2, you get to see, and in real life this is also true, at the Warrens' house, where they kind of have all their ghosty, creepy stuff, they have a display case. Like that. With a doll in it. Doesn't look like that. It actually looks a bit more like a Raggedy Ann doll, but that is the actual real Annabelle doll that is to be kept in the case and not to be touched, not to be moved, nothing like that. Because she holds evil spirits, basically. So then this film, the first Annabelle film, was kind of a spin-off from The Conjuring, as you can see on the back of this mask, because I got this actually the first Annabelle. Before The
Wow.
Conjuring, there was Annabelle. I also went to the press screening of that, also with my friend Justin.
And so now Annabelle takes place in the 60s?
60s,
Like late
70s?
60s?
Yeah, I believe.
Okay.
I'm terrible at times.
Because Annabelle Creation takes place mostly in 1957.
Yeah.
It's got like a prologue bit, but mostly in 1957. And so the thing that I've found so neat about what James Wan is doing is that they're all period pieces in this Waniverse.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily all have the same feeling, the same like aesthetic in that way, but they do have the same tone, and it's
Yeah.
a really cool take itself seriously and scare the bejesus out of you tone. And Amy's been introducing me like gradually to this universe, and I feel like the Waniverse, and I feel like I'm in now.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a really cool screening that Amy invited me to of The Conjuring happening at the Royal in Toronto earlier this year.
Now it was the first Conjuring, and it was around the time that the second Conjuring was coming out.
It's like a month before.
It was a month before the second Conjuring was coming out, and I wasn't sure if you hadn't seen the first Conjuring.
No, so I was like, oh great, a chance to see it in the theater.
So I said, why don't we go together? Matt and I always go to movies together, but I said, why don't we go together and we'll see this one? I'd seen it, but I really liked it, so we go.
And the very first thing that pops up is James Wan's face on the screen saying, thanks for coming to this screening of The Conjuring. You're actually watching The Conjuring 2. And everyone was like, wow, that's so great. And I was like, yay, but damn, maybe I should have seen the first one first.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, much like Annabelle Creation, you don't really need to have seen the other ones to appreciate the film.
Yeah.
I mean, there's cool, like, moments that tie it all together, but it's not like going to see, I don't know, Star Wars Return of the Jedi and being like, what's happening? Who's this Luke guy?
I mean, and that's the great thing I feel about these films. For me, I don't know about if the Insidious ones were also James. I think you may need a bit more of those, and those ones are a bit too, like, I found for me a bit more heady, a bit too, I got lost in that Waniverse is its own Waniverse. That's the Insidious verse.
I didn't read anything about Insidious being a part of the Conjuring verse, right?
It's not. But it is. It's a James Wan. It's a very James Wan world.
Okay.
There is some tie-ins between The Conjuring and Insidious in certain ways.
Oh.
But it's for me Insidious. I if I had been reviewing it, I probably would have had a couple. What the fuck is that? What's going on? Because it gets a bit. For me, it gets a bit too. There's almost too many layers to the universe that I forget how we got there. But luckily with these films, and this is not to say that they are, lazy. They're not lazy in any way, but it is quite easy to follow, and it is quite, a lot of people will say to me, like, as a horror fan, how do you like those films? Like, how can you like those films? They're so, like, they're like pedestrian. I don't find them pedestrian at all.
I didn't find that at all, no.
I find that, like, are they kind of like fun house, spooky house scares? Sure. Are they very similar in a sense? You'll get a very same jump scare from Annabelle 1 to Annabelle 2, as well from The Conjuring, Conjuring 2, but they work.
In fact, I found this film didn't rely too much on jump scares. It was mostly about tension.
Yes, and I love tension. You and I know we both live for tension in a story, and that's my thing.
It was well done.
My thing about James that he's always been able to do, which is so cool, is something so small you didn't even know, because he makes sure everything, the production design in his films are always sick, because he wants you to be afraid of something in your house later.
Right.
Remember when we went to see, when we saw Conjuring 2, remember, and I was saying, oh my god, every fucking piece of furniture here is possessed. Yeah. The next film should be like the scare chair or something.
Yeah.
And there was things and just reflections and things, I didn't realize I'd be afraid of a TV reflection that was off.
Yeah.
This one also had some really great things. Maybe, well, we're going to get into spoiler territory too soon. But anyways.
So before we get into spoilers, let's talk about this idea of a cinematic universe.
Yes,
because James Wan, I'd say about 4 or 5 months ago, the DC cinematic universe was something that I was really worried about, because the guy in charge was Zack Snyder. Yeah. And the only person on that team that had any experience successfully making a cinematic universe was James Wan, and I didn't even know it. And he's doing Aquaman.
Yes.
And so I find it fascinating that he is a part of this cinematic universe that Warner Brothers is putting, like, goofy, ridiculous, like, dumb amounts of money into.
Yeah.
But here's James Wan in the Conjureverse, Waniverse space.
Yeah.
Making those, like, $10 to $30 million just brilliant horror films that deliver on what a horror film in the 21st century is.
Yeah, well, I mean, remember, this is also the same guy that left for a little bit to do Fast and Furious, because who wouldn't want to do that? Who wouldn't want to do Aquaman, right? Yeah. So much fun. But he is through and through a horror fan. He knows his shit. He knows his universes. He's a very, very, very clever guy. He has great teams behind him that are, I think, have plotted out almost in a military strategic fashion this fantastic thing that is slowly unfolding before us in ways that I just love watching every time.
Well, and I love the surprise that this has become a cinematic universe.
Yeah.
The thing that Marvel was able to do was catch us off guard. We all of a sudden realized that those 3 movies we were watching became the Avengers. And it was almost like it came at us from sideways. And that's what James Wan's been able to do with the Conjureverse, because he made one Conjuring movie, and then he made another one, but then he was also making Insidious movies, and then Annabelle came out, and you're starting to see these things happen. And then The Nun was announced.
Yeah.
And
The Nun is from the Conjuring 2.
Exactly.
As is
And
Annabelle.
The Nun has an interesting moment in Annabelle Creation. And so the fact that
was
these
a
things
spoiler.
are... Well, it's like there are moments, and definitely sit through the credits because there are further moments.
Yeah.
But there are moments in these films that reference each other without making it feel, I wanna say masturbatory.
Yeah, or like, look at me!
Yeah, like there's just a straight up terrible series of moments in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, where Batman just like goes through a file folder and randomly watches some little vids, and it's
no,
like,
that's lazy.
here's a terrible video about exposition. Here's another terrible video about exposition, and it's like the movie stops, grinds to a halt to give you a bunch of ads for another movie.
Yeah.
And that has always struck me as like seriously lazy
It's tacky,
universe building.
too.
It's tacky, yeah.
And you also really feel like, I don't like being sold something with, like, tell me you're selling me it.
Yeah.
Put it before the movie
Don't
and
treat
say,
me like an idiot.
yeah, I'm not a chump. Don't do that.
And I like that what James Wan is doing is just like drawing a thread between 2 properties and tightening it.
Absolutely.
And it feels elegant, it feels smart, and it feels earned.
And he lets you figure that out slowly. You know, he's not pushing it in you.
I felt so smart in that moment that there was like this reflected image
cool.
of a nun in shadow, and I was like, oh man, I think I know what that is. And I kind of didn't really. I was like, I think I remembered the nun from The Conjuring 2, and I was like, oh man, I think that's that. And it made me feel like I was a part of a really cool like microcosm. Whereas when it's all spoon-fed to you like you're an idiot in the Dark universe in The Mummy, or it's spoon-fed to you like you're an idiot in Dawn of Justice, it's just like, oh, stop advertising another movie to me. Give me this movie.
Exactly.
You haven't earned those movies yet.
Exactly.
And James Wan has earned every one of these, whether he was the director or the producer or just the architect.
Yeah.
He's doing some really great stuff, and I feel like he's earning this.
Absolutely. I 100% do as well. I think that, like, what I kind of like is how he's, it feels like he's like, got this thing where he's like, I'm going to have my own, like, Universal Monsters thing, and he's slowly dropping them into place. So we have, like, Valak, the nun. We've got Annabelle.
But then we've also got the Warrens that are like heroes, and it's like sometimes you follow the heroes.
Because
That's
a lot
true,
of people don't like them. A lot of people don't believe them, and they also, for some of these townspeople and stuff in the previous films, were like, you guys are bringing more trouble than good.
Yeah.
And then they abandon them in a ways, and then they're like, so you brought all this trouble, and now you're disappearing, and so they also are in their own way, heroes, anti-heroes, but they also have a place in that world. There's the nun. There's potentially another thing in this film that we saw that there might.
Yeah, there are other little creaturey things that pop up in this. I mean, the ram demon is a thing that ties a lot of this together. And Valak, the nun demon, is another entity that ties a lot of this together. And I wonder if the Crooked Man from Conjuring 2 is going to like go off and be his own interesting story. I feel like there's always something like a secondary cool creepy thing. And yeah, maybe it's time to get into spoiler territory and start talking about things like the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Was, a thing that the ram demon seemed to possess. Although I kind of got the impression in this film that there were multiple demons happening at the same time. I don't know.
The Scarecrow, I will say, while I thought it was cool, I'm still a bit like, because he kind of, I didn't really know where the association with him was. They just went to the barn and then he was there and then, you know, he came to life and whatever. I'm not sure how
let's talk about the sort of universe in which Annabelle exists.
Yeah.
It's,
first, though, can we talk about the universe where I exist? And this is like kind of...
Oh, you want a little more of that? Sure.
Sorry, I'm a thirsty girl in all these
you're
old-timey clothes.
You're sweating it out, and
know.
Normally you've got a little more skin to sweat through.
I know.
So yeah, let's talk about the fact that this is basically a possession story, but it's not a possession of a human like in Emily Rose or The Exorcist. This was using the image of a human to trick humans into inviting a demon into having a body.
Yeah.
And in Annabelle, the story is such that basically a couple loses a child. That couple happened to be making dolls. And so a demon tricks that family into thinking that their own child is, the ghost of their child is trying to come back to them. And so they invite that demon, thinking it's their child, to have corporeal form.
Yeah.
And it's a doll. And they realize this was a terrible idea.
Yes.
And so lock it away, wrap it in the Bible, and drown it in holy water and think, okay, whew, problem solved.
Yes.
But this is a greedy demon, and it eventually finds a human host. And it's when this orphanage storyline comes into play.
Can we talk about one thing just before that? We need to address this very, the Christian and the anti-Christian and the sort of satanic images and sort of things that are always sort of dropped into these stories. So, you know, there this whole idea of bringing back this demon and having to, this thing of inviting your dead child back is not very...
It's not a Christian thing to do.
It's not a Christian thing to do. Neither is then this demon. The other thing is that there's some neat things, like very just little minor things. I don't know if you noticed when the father, Mullins, the father's name is escaping me.
Mr. Mullins.
Mr. Mullins, when he's walking into the house, I believe it was him, and you see this great big, you know, it's a great James Wan swooping shot over through the house. You see he walks through the door and there's this glass behind him. And the framing of this stained glass is upside down crosses. Did you notice that?
There's crosses all over that house. It's quite interesting.
This was like right away. It's what's holding it in place. Is like, and they're upside down cross. And I was just like, you cheeky little devil.
Well, James Wan has this thing where in his horror films, the church tends to be sort of a powerful but inept or evil entity.
Yeah.
And so it's neat to watch the church kind of just be crappy at what it's trying to do.
Well, and yeah, I mean, especially in stuff like The Conjuring, where it's very, I mean, you're bringing in ghost hunters. It's a very anti-religion in a lot of ways. It's kind of putting that all to shit.
Well, and it's curious because at the heart of this is always demons. It's always demons. So I haven't seen anything in this universe yet, and I want to dive in now. I want to watch the other Conjuring. I want to watch the other Annabelle. I want to see what the heck happens with this nun movie.
Yes.
This is all really exciting to me, and I'm excited that, you know, you're getting into like the Marvel and DC universes because of me, and now I'm getting into the Waniverse because of you. This is really cool.
It's like Twins, the movie, sort of, in a way.
Where I'm like inviting you to be healthy, and you're inviting me to, you know, organize crime. It works out well.
Up top. Yeah. Okay.
So the thing that I am really into about this film is that it takes this sort of scary doll motif from like Chucky and stuff like that, but instead of making it a like marionette or an animatronic thing or I guess a CGI puppet, the puppet never moves, not on screen. And for me, that is far more terrifying because there's I think the scariest thing about Doctor Who are the angels. And they're these creatures who every time you look at them they seem perfectly still, but when you turn your back they've moved by the time you look at them again. And Annabelle had everything about that I found beautifully terrifying.
Yeah, it's funny. I was telling you, my friend that went to the film with me, he was saying, you know, he doesn't find that scary. He needs his dolls to have what he called personality, and he needed them to be more animated like Chucky. And I'm saying, like, that doesn't do it for me. That starts to feel a bit, it's
goofy.
Goofy. And for me, this is why, like, when something is completely stale, stagnant, not moving, and is inanimate, why are you right behind me? Why are you playing in the, like, I find that so much more scary because I can't, it's not giving me any human-like qualities to relate to and go, how do I deal with this?
Well, and I think James Wan was very particular with this kind of horror to make sure that it's more relatable.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I've never seen a doll get up and say, hey, Matt, I'm scary, but I have looked at a thing and been like, I didn't leave it like that, did I?
Exactly.
And it's playing on those innate fears that you have that are totally irrational. And I think, especially in like Japanese and Korean horror, playing with those innate fears are so great.
Oh, it is.
And I love that James Wan is grabbing those really great ways of getting into your brain, getting into your psyche.
Fucking with you. Like in ways, you know, you didn't know you were going to be scared of that. Then you go, fuck, I don't want to go home now.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that's what I mean. Like just those little things, you know, reflections and stuff. Or just, you know, like, I didn't know to be afraid of like a dumb waiter before. But hey, and it was a great thing. I thought when I saw him doing that, I go, you smart fuck. That's such a great gag. Like, it's such a great tool to use for setups. He's
especially
so smart.
when your stars are children.
Exactly.
Because there were some adult characters in this, but really it centers on 2 children.
Yeah.
Well, arguably 3 children, even though one of them is dead and a demon that looks like that child. But those are really your main characters.
Well, and Annabelle the doll, who you can say is, I mean, people can just say she's a doll, but she's got so much, she's got a ton of personality.
Oh my
if you've got to run away from something and you've got to try to figure out how to beat it and how to get rid of it, you can't tell me that's just a doll.
Yeah.
Sorry. I've never had to, you know, that to me is not just a doll, so you can't say it's not a character to me in the film, but the kids have some really great performances in this as well. I think that is really important to point out.
Yeah, the bond between those 2 girls at the beginning, I liked it. I think you found it sort of heavy-handed.
Okay, I don't like stuff in, there's certain things I don't like in movies. The only one that allows it is The Conjuring 2 is the only movie where I was allowed, the romance was allowed. Remembered?
Yeah,
I love that.
you were okay with that romance.
Because it's so sweet. Because it's Patrick Wilson and it's Vera Farmiga and you just can't hate it. But I don't like romance in movies. I don't like ballroom dancing in movies. And there was too much friendship in this movie. There was too much camaraderie. These 2 girls at the beginning going, oh, we're going to be together forever and we're never going to be separated and you look just like your doll and blah, 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 blah. And I was going, okay, like, fuck. We get it. You guys are in this together. I know. There's something about me. There's something incredibly juvenile about me sometimes. It's just like, let's get to the death.
You're a bit like a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah, a lot of ways. I've had so many people tell me that.
Oh, really?
Lots of people. Yeah.
Now, I didn't mind the friendship. I did think it went on too long.
Thank you. That's
there was more of it than I thought was necessary.
Yeah.
I think you could have, cut out a couple of the moments of exchange, and you would have still established that these 2 girls are inseparable at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, that inseparability is what makes one of them trying to stop the other such an emotional and satisfying point in the film. Because if you don't have that relationship, I think it would have fallen flat. You needed them both to have that.
And I mean, first of all, this is a story about orphans. And so these kids are already sort of at a disadvantage. There's about 6 of them that go to this family's home, the Mullins home, and they're all from another orphanage that, I don't know, went defunct or something.
Yeah, they don't really explain why they left an orphanage, but the parish priest was somehow going back somewhere else because he took the van and left.
Yeah, so they that was weird. That
and then he shows up at the end and he's like, "Don't worry, the doll's no longer possessed." And you're like,
the doll?
There's a whole other movie where the doll's pretty possessed. Yeah. So, all right, El Chapo, let's see.
Yeah. But this guy, so these kids all end up in this orphanage. There's a couple girls that are sort of teenage age, and then our 2 leads, Linda and
I don't know. I didn't catch.
Janet.
I
want to say
really
Janet,
catch
but
either
it's
of their
not
names.
Janice.
Janice, okay.
And Linda, I believe, is one. has a polio. She's recovering from polio.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever fully recover from polio, which is what was interesting about this character.
That. Yeah, so she has sort of a brace
on one side,
but she also has a wheelchair that also seems to, for some reason, people are very, very ignorant to this problem. Like, they're like, you got to stay on the second floor. But she's in a wheelchair.
Oh my God.
People, I mean, this wheelchair thing, everyone's going outside to play. She's just, like, stuck there.
Yeah, they had like a bit of a Rear Window vibe to her experience. She would see all of her friends playing, and you could tell that she was going to be the main character of the film. And then partway through, and this is a pretty decent spoiler, partway through, she becomes the villain of the piece, and her friend becomes the hero. So the plural protagonist shifts into the antagonist and the protagonist, which I've never really seen anything quite like that.
Yeah.
It caught me off guard, and I liked it.
Me too.
I liked it a lot.
I didn't see it coming. I also will say, but actually, at the very beginning, the opening scene was a pretty chilling kind of scene.
The death of the child?
Yes, the Annabelle scene.
So the kid gets hit by a car.
Right.
And it is
gross.
Brutal.
And
but not even... It's not even like grisly.
No.
It's just the sound design
the
and
sound
the edit.
was gross.
It's really quite beautifully done.
It was very well done, you beautiful people. But it was gross. Everyone in the theater was like, oh. But then, so for me, that sort of, I was like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah, this film did a pretty great job of bringing you along with the emotion it wanted you to feel until the ejection scene.
Okay, now here we go. Here's the thing I gotta tell you. Okay, now, I'm going straight to hell. Let's start with this. I am going straight to hell for this shit. But as we were talking about, Linda is in a wheelchair, and they want her to stay on the second floor, which is just not very conducive to a house that's a million years old.
It's just mean.
It is mean. It's quite mean-spirited. But then they say, oh, well, you can use this chairlift. You guys know the one that goes along the stairs. Zzz, you know, you've got the remote, and you see the old people in the ad.
Apparently they had those in the 50s.
I checked, because I thought this seems too modern. I mean, it didn't look very modern, but I thought it's a modern
idea, but
nope, started in the 20s, so this makes sense. I knew James is smart. I think I've never let anything like that happen.
That's too much of an anachronism.
Yeah, he would never let that happen. So, you know, she's in the thing. They keep saying, you know, the thing won't move unless your buckle is, your seatbelt is done up, whatever.
Which I really don't think they had machinery back then that could detect that, but okay.
Know. Yeah, that seems... I didn't look into the mechanism. I just looked into the actual patent of the thing.
Yeah.
So she's in her chair going down. She's trying to get away.
Yeah, she's trying to escape slowly on the machine, and then, of course, it's possessed and starts going back the other way. But then it does this thing that I'm pretty sure is designed to be scary, but it played as goddamn hilarious in my theater.
I died.
You were like, in your theater, you were like the only person who laughed at this?
Yeah, it was not, I wasn't well received for laughing at that, because this kid gets ejected from the fucking thing. I mean, like, flies out. I was talking about it with my friend, and he was like, I could hear this, like, Hanna-Barbera, like, boing, yoing, yoing, yoing kind of sound. She flies up, and I started laughing my ass off. Then, all you see is a boot come and drop, and then I also kept laughing. Nobody was laughing then. Then, her body came down, and there was that amazing sound design again, that crunch. Then I felt a little bit bad.
In my theater, everybody laughed out loud. It was a pretty packed theater, and everybody thought it was hilarious. So I'm pretty sure that was not supposed to play that way.
I don't know.
I don't think it's supposed to be funny. I mean, it had... In a movie where there's a doll that's going to be the bad guy, there's a danger of having like a Chucky Weekend at Bernie's funny thing happen.
Yeah.
I did not expect it to happen in the fully alive human being getting chucked out of a chair.
And it wasn't the only time. For some reason, I mean, I don't know what's going on, but they really used this wheelchair
as whipped that girl around a fair bit.
All sorts of different situations. She was kind of the butt of the joke for the whole time.
She was ejected from all kinds of mobility chairs.
Yeah, and in different spots. Inside, outside, barns.
Yep.
I mean, Jesus, I mean, it was a very, very thoroughly used device.
Yeah.
For comedy and scares, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly for scares on purpose and occasionally for comedy by accident.
I don't know.
That was the impression I got.
I am a horrible person, so I found it highly entertaining pretty much all of the time. But
it was not a scene that would have benefited from a comedic beat in the middle of it, so I'm pretty sure that was not supposed to be funny.
Were there any people in wheelchairs at your screening?
No. Yours?
Now I need to think about that. I know there was... I was at a press screening, so it was a little different, but a lot of the time there's contest winners at press screenings.
Oh, right.
I do remember there was someone that had a cane, and there was someone who was, like, vision impaired, but not that I can remember a wheelchair. Now I'm actually kind of glad. I hope that wasn't, because that was kind of a dick move on my part. But
I don't know, man. That was an accidentally comedic moment.
Yeah.
And I mean, this was before she needed the wheelchair. She wasn't in the
she
wheelchair
wasn't
until after that
that's what
crunchy
happened.
fall.
Yeah, once she had that crunch from the ejection. I don't know what that also says for the chairlift people. I don't know if that's going to cause them any
demonic chairlift possession. Not a cool thing.
Well, you know, I told you.
Probably not insured.
James, after we saw The Conjuring 2, I remember, and I was telling James the same thing. You got this thing. Every piece of furniture has to be possessed. Every piece of furniture in The Conjuring 2 was possessed or something.
Yeah, whereas in this, the only piece of furniture that seemed possessed, the wheelchair, which isn't so much furniture as equipment.
I think that the rocking chair a bit too, because that's kind of where Annabelle. Oh, and the dollhouse.
The dollhouse seemed pretty possessed.
Let's talk about one thing. Sorry, got to bring it up right now. One of the dopest scenes in this, that was scary as shit, and I loved it, was the puppet show.
That was excellent.
Excellent! I was so stoked on the puppet show.
Now, and maybe it's because I haven't seen the other Wanaverse films, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around what the rules of this universe are.
Yeah.
Because this Ram Demon,
oh, yeah.
and I've got to say, as soon as we finally got to see all of the Ram Demon, he became far less scary.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, when he was just teeth being bared or hands showing up.
Oh, the James Wan manicure.
Yes, the Wanacure was very nice.
We always talk about the James Wan manicure, which is actually Joseph Bashira, who also does the music for all of James's films.
Oh.
He loves to do these, like, hands around the corner and around these things, and they're always very kind of grody hands.
Yeah.
We refer to it as the James Wan manicure. It's a very signature. It's a very like Wan. It's very him. So I always like to address those.
But as soon as you see who is attached to the hands, and you see like the full demon in all his glory, which you don't see a lot, but you see like maybe twice and for only a few frames. For me, the scare just evaporated.
Yeah.
I didn't really appreciate seeing the whole ram.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the design of the thing that I didn't find scary, because when I see a Guillermo del Toro creature in all of its glory, it's deeply disturbing.
There was something about it that almost I don't know if it was just me. It reminded me of like something from a Jack Black thing. Do you remember the thing I'm talking about? Remember, there was like a ram or a demon-y kind of something in one of his...
Oh, yeah.
I don't... Pick of...
The Pick of Destiny.
Yeah, there was like a demon-y ram kind of thing or something. It almost felt like something you'd see on Adult Swim or something like that.
I didn't particularly dig the production design, because it
Not on
really
that
just
one.
felt like a dude in a black paint job with some ear stuff and contacts. Every other thing, when you see shades of it, like when someone turns around and they've got a bit of that happening in their face, that was terrifying.
Yeah.
When you see the hands grabbing at things, when the puppet show happens and then the hands are not even there, those things are all really effective at being scary. But I think, like all elements of horror, except for Guillermo del Toro, the less you see, the scarier it is.
Yeah, the more you have to think about it and the more it's implied, the more it can fuck with you.
Don't show the shark. The shark is not scary.
Yeah.
The idea of the shark is scary.
Oh, you know what else I want to talk about that is similar to what we sort of talked about last week, or 2 weeks ago, actually, was the fact that they never even said the word Annabelle in this film for a very long time.
It was very interesting, the fact that they just referred to their child as B for a while.
Yes.
And at first I was like, okay, I can tell what you're doing, but I'll go along with it.
Yeah. And then, the doll Annabelle is like, they never actually say the name either. They just always say, like, the doll.
Yeah, and I feel like in The Walking Dead, they never say the word zombie.
Right.
Because zombie has a lot of stigma attached to it. It's a big, long-standing concept in society. So if you call them like biters or walkers or whatever, you manage to escape that stigma. But there's no stigma to the name Annabelle. No. And you're not going to surprise me that the doll maker's kid is named Annabelle.
Well,
none of that was that didn't deliver.
I kind of liked that all of a sudden, a little bit into it, I started realizing, like, wait a second, why are we saying her name? And it started to make me think, is there something going to be, like, are we going to get into Bloody Mary territory? What are we going to get into?
We're saying her name creates something?
Creates something. And then I kind of liked that idea. Like, that kind of was a bit of a, like, misdirection in a sense for me. See, as someone who's not as familiar with horror tropes, I just thought they were trying to trick me into thinking it wasn't
it wasn't actually Annabelle, and it wasn't going to work. Like in the Spider-Man film, in the new Spider-Man film, they managed to avoid letting you know who Mary Jane Watson is for the whole movie because they don't call her that until the very end. And then you're like, oh, okay, sure, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, in Kodoko Meatball Machine, they didn't say the name of the movie for fucking 32 minutes.
That's true. There was never a meatball.
No, not a meatball and not a name. So I was like, oh, look at this. Now we're getting into weirder, even weirder fucking connections.
Whereas in Matangtubig, at least that was the name of the town.
Exactly. And I think it was one of the first things we saw.
Yep.
Wasn't it? Was the name
it was,
of the...
Yeah.
So, weird. Anyways.
Yeah, it felt like it gave the name Annabelle power, and then the name Annabelle never had power. Mm-hmm. So that was a bit of a misdirect that didn't seem to have a reason to be.
Yeah. I mean, another misdirect that I saw was the girls, the other orphans.
The other 4 girls?
Especially the teenage girls, because I was thinking, you guys are shitty. You're shitty to them. You're talking about boys. You're doing all this stuff that...
It's the horror trope that usually means Freddy's gonna get you.
Exactly. And then, I mean, I do gotta say, what is this shit about the light bulbs? I mean, that was a bit... It started to get a bit silly, and I will say that, I mean, spoiler again, but, I mean, these are some of the dumbest people I have ever seen in a horror film.
Yeah.
Really.
There were some dumb...
Really dumb.
There were some real dumb moments.
But, I mean, it was funny to me.
Dumb choices.
It was funny to me. I mean, I don't expect them to be, very well, like, organized in their thought process.
Well, I mean, the good thing about a movie happening in the 50s is horror movies don't have tropes yet.
Yeah.
When you set a film in 2017 and someone does something that happened in Scream, shit, you should have known better.
Yeah.
In the 50s, I think you can get away with not being as aware of horror tropes because this movie takes place before the second Mummy film.
That's true.
There's not a lot of horror films in place yet. And I find the fact that James Wan has been able to create a universe of interconnected horror films, not action movies like Tom Cruise or Brendan Fraser Mummy films, but actual genuine horror films. To me, it's more in the spirit of what the Dark Universe should have been, because in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 50s, horror films hadn't yet gotten into slasher Freddy Jason territory. And now that we're in the post Freddy universe, when we know what to expect from a horror film, and James Wan is delivering and bringing the level even higher, I feel like this is where the Dark Universe is missing its mark. It should be doing this. It should be making $30-40 million horror films that show you the villain, the creature, the monster, the money shot.
Yeah.
That's the money shot.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to have that, why do you need a ridiculous Tom Cruise stunt where he crashes in a helicopter or in a giant bomber? Like, none of this is horror.
Yeah.
None of this is the Dark Universe.
And none of his films really, their stars, if you will, overpower the demon. Like
the villain.
The villain.
The monster.
The Warrens, that's why I say in the Conjuring, in a sense, the Warrens, but I don't find them overpowering of them. I don't find
Patrick
Tom
Wilson's a great actor, but he's not a...
Vera Farmiga is so wonderful.
Yeah, there's never been a time where Patrick Wilson was seen as some kind of, like, A-list movie god that could do no wrong. And the fact that he has to work and act and be great in a film for people to appreciate his work. He's in ensembles. He's in television series.
He's a musical theater guy.
Yeah,
to start
he's a
with.
great actor.
Yeah, and Vera Farmiga is also just fucking incredible.
Yeah, the Waniverse uses actors.
Yes.
The Dark Universe uses stars.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
You don't need stars.
There's too much scenery chewing in those sorts of things, and not enough performance in it.
Because you know who the star of The Mummy ought to be? The Mummy.
Thank you.
The star of Annabelle was Annabelle.
Yeah.
That is how those films work.
100%.
And, the star of Van Helsing gets to be Van Helsing, and the star of The Conjuring gets to be actual humans. We get to have that family that we care about, who, there are protagonists. But, the nun is going to be about the nun.
The nun is going to be about the nun.
That's the way to do that.
But are we sure? We don't know. I mean, it could be about, the family the nun is haunting. I mean, if you think...
Well, and hopefully, if everything I'm hearing is correct, the nun will become the earliest film chronologically in the series.
Oh, really?
And it's going to take place where Sister Catherine... I don't know, Sister whoever who was in Annabelle.
Oh,
the star of Miss Bala.
The woman who I was like, man, you're dumb.
Yeah, she's dumb, but
dumb.
I found her refreshing because she was the only non-white character in the whole film.
No,
pretty much.
There was a young black girl in the orphanage.
Oh, that's right, there was. She was such a secondary character, but you're right.
But she did live, and she wasn't the first to die.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
but I like the fact that our Latinx female nun has a photo of her and her pals in the nunnery, and there's this little moment where you can see Valak, you can see the nun hiding in the shadows, and I'm pretty sure that's the time frame we're going to be exploring in the nun, which means Miss Bala might be in those films as well, which would be kind of neat to have not just the villain but one of our heroes that we've established. It just helps this web of one of her stuff be so intricate and well connected.
And it's so funny because it is very well done. Even the biggest it's a skeptic who wants to call me on these films and say, yeah, but there's no way. Okay, what about this? This doesn't fucking... No, but it does make sense. It actually all, if you want to, sit down, it all actually adds up. All of this adds up to reasons why these are where they are, the people are who they are, the situations are as is. It all adds up. You can't fuck with it, unfortunately. I'm very sorry, but you can't.
The thing I like about this is that it doesn't even really matter.
No.
Because these films are strong.
Yeah, I don't...
They're strong horror films that tell a great story, and honestly, if they bung up the continuity in the interest of making a great film, that's okay, because it's all really well connected.
Yeah.
And Marvel has bunged that up too, because, the Hulk's face changed from Edward Norton to Ruffalo, so it's the fact that things are recast, things are changed.
Sure.
It's fluid, man. You can't be a slave to the continuity to the point that you're making movies that aren't interesting.
Well, and then that's the thing also. You're making a movie. Let's remember that. This is a movie. This is not a true story. We can say it's based on a true story. There are elements of it that are based in reality, but this isn't a documentary, and it's fine. I mean, my thing is I was very entertained watching this movie. I had a great time. I will say I could have done with maybe 20 minutes less. I have a hard time with these 2-hour horror films, guys. I'm very sorry. I got a bit of a I love tension and I like a good build, but it does need to have a...
What was the running time on this guy?
This was almost 2 hours.
Really?
I think it was 5 minutes short.
Okay, because it trucked along nicely. For me, a horror film, the 90-minute horror film to me is like a standard.
Yeah, it's perfect to me.
It trucks along at the right speed.
Yeah.
And I feel like this film managed to succeed where films like The Dark Knight fail. Where there's an extra act at the end that is kind of bullshit.
I just think we could have cut down on the fucking friendship.
Granted, I felt this film had this epilogue that tied it really neatly to what I can only assume is the first Annabelle film.
Oh, well, you'll learn. Yep.
So I'm looking forward now to seeing the first Annabelle film because I'll actually get to see it chronologically, which I don't know if that benefits or detracts, but I'll find out.
Well, and then we can watch the first Conjuring, which we'll be watching out of order. But
although I guess it's getting chronological.
But it will be getting chronological, won't it?
By accident.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
then I've got to watch The Conjuring 2 again. So
that's fine. But by then, dumb luck, we're actually doing it in the right way.
Wow. Look at that.
Yet again, James Wan has just managed to kind of work this whole thing around. The one thing I will say that oh, sorry.
The police have found us.
Yeah. Don't tell them this isn't a licensed costume. We keep talking about James Wan and the Waniverse and how this is James Wan film. We should address the fact though that it's actually David, what's his name, the director? He did Lights Out. Yeah, we are not very prepared today. Sorry, guys.
What's the name of the director?
He did Lights Out, which was also a James Wan produced film.
Yeah. I mean, he's taking a bit of a backseat to James Wan's producing this film, for us at least, because the architect of this film, it's kind of like the person who directs a Marvel movie almost doesn't matter, because Kevin Feige is the guy running the show.
Yeah.
And films that are made in a cinematic universe have a tendency to be made like TV shows.
Yeah.
Where the director shows up, does his job, is a bit of a traffic cop, gets it to the end of the production, but it's overseen by the showrunner or the head writer.
Yeah.
And that's often the executive producer.
And I don't want to diminish this guy's role or discredit any of his work, because he did a great job, but had I not known, I would have assumed it was James. It had all of his signature things. It has the beautiful sweeping shots. Mm-hmm. It has those great shots that move throughout the whole thing to establish in one fell swoop where you are, who's there, why you're there, what's going on.
There was really great continuing action on the techno crane shots.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
But it's a very James Wan thing.
It's a very
And I feel like that is something that makes this feel, in not a negative way at all, like an episodic television storyline.
Absolutely.
And James Wan is the showrunner.
For sure.
And so every director who walks in doesn't get to pick the style.
No.
The style's established.
Yeah.
So that's why that tone, regardless of the time period, the tone is always consistent, and that's because James Wan has already shot the pilot, basically, and everyone else is making episodes in that show.
Yeah.
And so the best directors are ones that feel like James Wan in this way, because that's the bullseye.
And that's your job there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like in TV. Like in Game of Thrones, man.
Yeah.
You don't want to stand out as a director in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Because if you do, you're doing your job wrong.
Yeah, no, my friend Mick Garris, he's directing episodes of Once Upon a Time right now. He did this last year, and he was asked back to do it because, you know what? He made like a perfectly continual...
Fits in.
Exactly.
You're not just making one movie.
No.
It's the balance between making one movie great, but not making it incongruous with the overall story and the universe that's at play.
And respecting the fact that while you're making it, it's not your movie. You're making a movie in someone's universe.
Yeah.
You're just having the, you're just walking in and going through their closet, trying it on, and making it your own style in its own way. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I do want to say that the director, so goddamn sorry that right now I am so stupid that I can't think of the name. But you did a really good job in Lights Out, so thanks. And this was really good too. Really sorry. But yeah, like all in all, I'm going to have to say for this film, if I had to... Everyone was thinking I was going to fucking hate this one. You're
really?
So crazy. Yeah.
Why? Why did people think you weren't going to like it? Was it all the friendship?
No, it wasn't all the friendship. It was that people just assume I'm not going to like something as sort of... I don't know. I guess mainstream is this, but that's all wrong. I like a good horror film. I don't care who made it or how much it's made for. I like a good story. I like a good scare. I don't care if I've seen it before. If I liked it, it worked, and I liked it. There we go. You can't deny a good film.
This film is making crazy money at the box office,
and it should.
And I think there's a perfect mix of being a traditional horror film. This is rated R.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing.
Being a traditional horror film, and yet still being able to make something new and different and original. That's another one of these balances.
And be accessible to people.
I enjoyed the hell out of this thing. And
I did too.
I wouldn't say I'm a horror fan first. I love science fiction and comic books. That's my thing.
That's true.
But I jumped all over this thing.
Yeah.
And my defenses were up at the beginning of it, because I was like, all right, so we're going to review another horror film. Okay. But holy shit.
We're gonna review another horror film.
Because I didn't really know what I was getting into, and
Put the mask on and talk through, Annabelle. That was horrible.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, Annabelle. I honestly didn't know what to expect. It started off with using a bunch of tropes that I was like, well, at least it's a period piece, and then at least it's a, and before I knew it, I was like, I frigging love this thing, and so yes, it's very accessible even to someone who's not, jumping into it as a horror fan. The question for me was always, what's Amy going to think of it? Because she is a dyed-in-the-wool horror fan. Is this derivative in a way I don't know? Is this too accessible for horror fans to like? But the fact that you really super dug it to the point that you're dressed like her even, that says a lot. Yeah. If you're a horror fan, you're going to love it. If you're not a horror fan, you're going to love it.
I found it highly entertaining. It's not reinventing the wheel. It is doing what James Wan does best, which is he's got a good thing going. It's like AC/DC. Why is AC/DC going to change their style all of a sudden now?
Yeah.
They're not. You don't want to hear AC/DC do something else. They do what they do, and they do it very well. So you're fine with the fact that you know some of the things that are going to come. Sometimes it's almost fun to be like, okay, I know it's either going to come from that open doorway there or from the reflection in that bowl there. Where's it going to come?
That's the thing about horror framing.
Yeah.
You know when the medium wide shot has a big, weird, empty space that something creepy is going to happen. And it almost always does.
And it's fine. I enjoy that sort of thing. Let's see. Like, I know how James Wan's going to set the pins up. It's just fun to see. Is he going to knock them down from left to right, right to left? Or is it going to be one of those even weirder misdirections where he just gutter balls it? And you're like, sneaky.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you're dealing with a cinematic universe, like, I don't want to see Marvel make a movie that is so unlike Marvel movies I like that I don't like it.
Exactly.
That's not going to happen.
Then you're not in the universe.
When Iron Man was made, they clicked into a gear, and they've stayed in that gear because it's a winning gear. And when James Wan made The Conjuring, he found a winning gear.
Exactly.
And he's stayed in it. Whether he was the director or just the producer, it didn't matter. It was always in that gear.
Exactly. So whoever is directing it, whatever, the guiding forces are saying, we know this works, let's stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, sorry for you, I don't know what you want to call yourselves. I would say, you want to say purists, but I don't consider that purist just to hate something because it's mainstream. I like a good movie. I like a good tension builder. I like, I like stress for some fucked up reason. I really like being stressed. So I enjoyed this movie. I would give this movie, I'm going to say 3.5 to 4 creepy dolls out of 5.
Wow.
I just, if it was a little bit shorter and we can do without a little bit of friendship just because I'm a terrible person, that's fine. Maybe we'll give it, I'm going to give it 3.5 ejected girls from a wheelchair up.
Wow. I'm going to say 4 ram demons out of 5.
Okay,
yeah. I enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I haven't watched enough horror films to find that this was in any way repetitive or to find that it was mainstream. I loved this experience.
Yeah, I did too.
And I'm so excited that there are now, 4 films in this universe that I can enjoy and a 5th one coming out? Is that where we are right now? 2 Annabelles, 2 Conjurings, and a Nun on the way.
Yes.
And a 3rd Conjuring apparently coming out at some point as well.
Yes, a 3rd Conjuring
so
as well.
We're 4 movies out of 6 already into it, and I'm hoping that, the Crooked Man and the Scarecrow and all these other characters continue to spawn interesting monsters.
Maybe even
because
a wheelchair.
These monsters here, this vampire and mummy and Frankenstein and werewolf are disappointing. Universal, get your shit together. Watch what James Wan is doing. Bring down the budgets. Eject these stars.
Now. I mean, as characters as a whole. I mean, these are the
best.
Well, it's not a holy trinity, but in a sense, it's a holy trinity.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I feel like
it's not doing them
what's
justice.
happening now.
Yes.
Universal needs to get their shit together. They need to take a look at what James Wan is up to, and they need to get rid of the Johnny Depps and the Russell Crowes.
Yeah, sorry, y'all.
And you don't need them. They're not your stars.
No.
Your stars are these guys.
Yeah.
Are the Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Bride of Frankenstein,
yes.
the Van Helsing. These are all amazing characters that you have in your stable, and you are just screwing the pooch with them.
Yeah, you need to have more respect for them.
Yeah, James Wan has made these from scratch.
Yeah.
In 5 years.
Yeah,
in 10
sorry
years.
guys, get your shit together.
You have 100 years almost with these creatures,
This is
and
true.
Universal, you are just screwing the pooch. Fix this. Fix this
Take
quickly.
Take a note from Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of sad
It is.
that Warner Brothers has been able to build a stable of better creatures.
Yeah, I mean, and then after this we have It, which is Warner Brothers as well. So
oh, fun.
Yeah. I mean, so Warner Brothers really has a good...
They got a good horror thing going. They're showing Universal how it's done.
Exactly. So take note, Universal.
All right. So I guess in conclusion, go see Annabelle if you haven't already.
Go see Annabelle. And I'm going to say 3.5 to 4 ejected wheelchairs.
I'd give it 4 ram demons
Up
up top.
Yeah.